Ardnamurchan is slightly different for a number of reasons. One of them, it's very maritime, so it's mild. Two, the basic geology of the ground, you can see it's very green.
Yes, yes.
Because of this, there's a lot of basalt, it's volcanic, and there's a lot of mineral-rich soils.
Yeah.
And the deer here grow bigger than most of the Highlands of Scotland.
Okay, okay.
So a typical stag here, a carcass of a stag, will be around about 110 to 130 kilos.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Which is about 30 kilos bigger than even one of our areas 15 miles inland.
Yes, yes, yes.
Typically when we get further inland, they're 70 to 90 kilos. And in their body, they're about 30 centimeters longer.
Yeah, and then I think the weight is quite like Sweden here, but,
yes.
but not in the...
Further inland they get small.
No. And we have a lot of big trophies in Sweden, really big trophies.
We have a lot of clients that have hunted here for many, many years, and strangely some of them don't take the trophies home anymore. No. I mean, to be honest, if I was them, I would start hunting hinds, because why pay the extra money and never take the antlers home? But maybe that's just because I'm a canny Scot. But some of the bigger stags, obviously most of them travel away with us. You can see one quite big one here in the middle.
Yes.
And if you watch on the staircase, I'll take you up and show you some of these this year's. These are fairly typical, and occasionally you get something like that.
This is a big one for...
Yeah, for here, this is a bit, you will see slightly bigger. This week you're shooting one big guy. He'll probably, I mean this is a younger one, he died when he was shot because he was injured.
Ah, okay, okay.
He'd actually got himself caught up in a fence and we just couldn't get him clear. Yeah. But he's still young enough yet, but that's, you would expect something up about here as one of the bigger trophy guys. Okay. So 16, 18 points I would think, something like that we'll go for.
Okay, okay.
But other than that, this is your typicals.
Yeah. Ja, han säger här att ungefär så här ser troféerna ut här, så de är ju något mindre än hemma, och det fanns några skapligt stora här också faktiskt, som är hyggligt stora. En ung hjort som inte är skjuten utan den har dött på annat sätt då. Så ungefär så här är det.
For a hill stag, that's a good stag. That sort of thing.
Yes, that's a quite good one. Yes, yes.
Yeah. For us, for a hill stag, that's a good one.
Yeah.
No, that's a sika behind it. And then behind that is an axis,
okay.
And behind that is a barasinga. These are all different species.
Okay. It's
so
quite heavy.
Yeah, this is something that's fairly unique to do in England.
Okay.
Because though some of these things are rare throughout the world, they're quite abundant in England. It's not everywhere you'd expect to go and hunt an Indian black buck in Norfolk, but there you go.
Okay. Does they always have a 3+3?
The hog deer
like,
do, yes. Yeah, it's a very, in fact, that for a hog trophy, that's a good hog
like
trophy.
Like a real big roebuck.
Yes, kind of.
Yeah.
And quite a very short, thick-set deer.
Okay, how much the weight for this?
Well, him, I would have reckoned he would have been about 65, 70 kilos.
Okay. Yeah. In living weight or butching weight?
Yeah,
living weight, okay. Yeah. Ungefär som någonstans mellan kron och dov. Lite mer mot kron nästan. Okay. Quite heavy.
And then lying next to it is a goat.
This is a goat.
Yep.
And that you call billy goat?
That's a billy goat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we'll also try and find one of them.
Yes.
And the roe deer in this area, this is a sort of an Ardnamurchan roe deer, which is very poor compared with yours. I mean, Swedish roebucks, I've seen pictures of them, and you would snigger if you saw something like that. But
yes,
here,
they don't be bigger than that.
No, not in this area. This is absolutely typical for this area.
It's not so much calk in the ground then.
No, exactly. Yeah. And it's a harsh life for them here. Yeah. And they also have to balance the fact that there's a big red deer population. Yeah. And everywhere they are, there's big numbers of red deer. Have you seen these before?
No.
This is an absolutely fascinating deer, and it's a great story for the aristocratic parks of England, because if they hadn't collected these animals, these would be extinct. This animal is called a Père David deer, and it was named after a Jesuit priest who first encountered them in the walled garden of the Imperial Palace in China. Okay. And a small population of these was brought to Woburn Abbey in Bedford, and around the time of the Boxer Rebellion and following a period of extensive flooding, the Père David deer became extinct in China, and the only place the population existed was in England.
Okay.
And this week,
how did it look?
What we'll do this week is we'll make sure you get nice and close to them and see them.
Okay.
Okay, because we have in one part of the estate, we have a herd now of about 40 Père David deer. And every now and again we shoot one with a client as a trophy, because collectors like to have them. And the older females, we process them because, and you'll find this interesting, the meat is fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's what that is. That's a pear David.
Oh.
Odd, isn't it?
Yeah. Fantastic.
The Chinese name for them is the Mailu, and the legend has it that they're not like the others. And when you look at it, you'll understand why they call this. I'll tell you it's a deer, but you'll think you're looking at something that's a cross between a camel and a donkey.
Okay.
And it's the oddest looking thing. But they're so ugly, they're very attractive.
Okay,
Yeah.
good meat.
The meat is terrific, and they're big. I mean, some of ours are here are more than 200 kilos.
Oh.
Yeah. So from a venison point of view, you can't knock it.
Nice.
This is the preparation area the deer come into.
Yeah.
You don't want to be filmed eating your breakfast, Tony, do you? So the man in here runs the butchery. This is Tony.
Yeah.
And what we do is to add value to the deer all the way through the journey. When they come in from the hunt, they come through this door.
Yeah.
And this is what we call the green room. So the room changes purposes at different times. So what you can't do here is be processing meat and bring an animal killed straight from the field.
Yeah.
So like so this morning, Tony is in here processing the venison. These are all products that are going for sale.
Yes.
Later today we'll bring a stag in, but the two events won't cross over.
Yeah.
So when they come in, they're cleaned out in this area.
I have myself, I own butchery.
Butchery?
So, yes, I
Splendid.
yes, so we have, but not so big. It's a little bit smaller.
Yeah. You can see what we're doing. So what we're doing in here, this is the cooler room.
Yep.
So all of the waste product from the deer, we market quite extensively our own venison. So what we do is we have a sales pitch that we say our venison is eagle friendly. So we have on the coast here sea eagle and further inland golden eagles, and all of the processed byproduct from the venison, anything that's shot damaged, we put it out for the eagles. And,
out for
the eagles to eat.
Yeah, to the eagles, yes.
Now it has two benefits. One, it diverts them from anywhere where they're causing problems, particularly when we have periods of the year when they have young lambs.
Yes.
And the other thing it does is it allows us to run alongside the hunting business a wildlife tourism business.
That's very smart.
This is sort of the condition that we would expect to see on our red deer at the moment.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll show you through in the freezer some of our products.
Yeah.
And you can give me your opinion. Yeah. This is the packing area.
Yeah.
So we make a range of products. So what started this journey for us is that the cost of running a hunt has gone up and up, like any other business. Yeah. But also to me, I'm passionately a hunter, and I believe that man's relationship with deer goes back a very long time.
Yeah.
You only have to look at the cave paintings and people throwing spears to realise that deer and us have had a great relationship. And I think in the last century they suffered a little, that they were seen only to be the bastion of rich people, and people connected deer with wealth and privilege, particularly in Scotland. Yeah. And what it did is it ended a relationship for healthy food. And I think it's been very important to try and bring healthy food back into people's life cycle and diet. And not only that, it adds value to deer. And in a rural community where there are small farmers, which we call crofters, and you have similar farming enterprises, it was important that people saw the value to deer, because then it controlled a lot of the conflict. Instead of people thinking deer on their farm is a problem, deer on the farm is a benefit. And during this week you'll get to see this. That we have an area to the west of the main estate where the land is controlled by small farmers.
Yes.
And what we do now is we buy the hunt off them. So instead of them having a problem with these deer in the winter, they have an opportunity to sell it to us in the autumn.
Yes, yes.
And the food's been an important part of it. If you let me in the freezer door, I'll show you.
Very good. Yes, okay.
So to let you see what we do,
Very good.
here you have very typical product. So this is your ground meat, this is your venison, and that's your venison mince. And you can see, compared with what you would normally get for it, I mean, we get £6.30 per kilo here.
Yeah.
Okay. So automatically it's a big change.
£6 per kilo, it's about 70, ungefär 70 svenska kronor.
Yeah. So it represents, so that, and that's our cheap end product.
Yes.
The big sellers are things like the venison burgers.
Yeah.
Okay. Now these cost us about £12 pence each to manufacture. We obviously have the meat content to it, and we are getting £5.80 per kilo for that.
Yes.
And what was really interesting in this journey, and I think if you have a chance to explore this at home, when we first started talking to local people, we said we're going to make a butchery for the venison. They said if we want a deer, we'll shoot it ourselves. But I think tragically across all of Europe, and maybe you see this in Africa too, the skills to be able to process meat are gone. Guys can take it to the hair-on cleaned out, but there's not a lot of guys that can make burgers, steaks. We do other product like this. Now what we do here, we call this a pavé steak. Now pavé is just a French word for a cobble, for a square of meat. These are the muscles from the back leg, from the haunch.
Okay.
And typically very few people buy this now, because the ability to cook a large roast and have time to do it, people don't do this.
No.
This will cook in 30 minutes.
Okay.
This is a muscle from the back leg, and we're getting for this £15.80 per kilo.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
You
very
okay?
good. Yes.
So this quadruples the value of the deer. So a red stag, one of the red stags you hunt this week, will be worth £1,000 to us.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the meat.
So this is a real big business for you.
Yes. Yeah.
The hunting, the meat, and everything.
Yes. Yeah. It sustains now. It sustains on the estate 4 full-time jobs. But it also provides, we have a castle that you'll be dining at later in the week, we have a hotel, and we also have a local community centre, and all of these meat products go there.
So you sell it to the stores and everything?
Yeah.
Yes?
This now mail orders all over the UK.
Okay.
So it works. We can mail order it to Sweden if you want.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much. But
You have your own.
I had to wash all the thing.
So what Tony's doing here is he's boning out a haunch, the typical leg muscle. This man runs his own butchery, Tony.
Who?
yes.
Oh.
Yes. No problem.
Yeah.
But if you like, yeah, of course. Of course.
Sit down.
Yes. So, this is called in Sweden innanlår. Yeah. So, okay.
Excellent.
Is it okay?
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
And you can stay all week.
Yeah. You don't need to go hunting. You can stay in here.
No, yes. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad. I like to work with this.
Very good.
Thank you.
Now, what we do at this stage, and it's obvious you're very skilled with a knife.
Yeah.
What we started doing is we had the issue when we started processing venison, as I said, with big roasts. The average, and I use the term housewife, and maybe that's unfair, the average cook, shall we say, didn't either have the time or the cooking space to cook a big roast.
Yeah, you mean the people left hasn't the time today to do the big steaks,
Yes.
and then you
So this is why we started creating things like this, which we would sell this as a parve steak.
Yes.
Okay.
That's very good.
Now, and what we do with that is the recipe for it is to sear it in a pan. So what we do is we oil the steak, not the pan, and just sear it just to seal the contents, and then we would cook it for about 20 minutes at full power in an oven. And for every length of minute that you cook it, you rest it. Because when you cook the process, the muscle tightens up.
Yes.
And when you let it, you know this anyway, when you let it rest, the muscle relaxes again.
Yes.
And if you've seared it properly, halfway through the process, turn the steak over one time.
Okay. How long do you hang the animal before you butcher it?
We find with the red stags, partly because of demand and space, but partly because we didn't see a big difference, 7 days.
Okay.
We find 7 days to be adequate.
In 5, 6
How many
degrees?
Yeah, it's sitting in there, what's it, about 4, 5?
3 to 5.
Yeah. But it's marvellous. I mean, I think venison is going through a great renaissance in Europe. It's interesting, we get a lot of German hunters here.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago, I've been 30 years hunting now, so almost you could say 30 years ago, all the venison in Scotland went to Germany. And it's only now changed that this year Scotland will undersupply its market demand by 20,000 deer.
Okay.
So the market has changed completely in Scotland. Now the people in Scotland and in the UK are eating venison.
Yeah.
And it seems that we've left, and the Scandinavian countries are following too, have left what used to be our traditional markets behind. And when you speak to German hunters, they still find it hard to sell.
Yeah.
Very few people cook it. Whereas I think now across sort of the north, everybody's eating what they used to eat again.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted. Well done. It's good.
But so how many hunters do you have each year?
On average, we have 190 hunters a year.
Okay.
We start our hunting season in the south on roebucks.
Yeah.
We now offer a complete range of hunting opportunities. So last week I had a group hunting in the south, and they were shooting hog deer and axis deer and barasingha and big trophy park deer.
Yeah.
We also hunt roebucks in the spring. We do in March, we do a combination hunt for muntjac and fallowbuck. In England, which is very, very popular.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to shoot a muntjac once.
Yeah.
And these are difficult little guys to hunt.
Yes.
And then Stevie and I come back north, and from July we make another roebuck hunt, but we don't do so much roebucks other than at the rut in the north because the vegetation is so high.
Yeah.
And then by the end of July, beginning of August, we start our stag hunt, and we hunt all the way to the 20th of October.
Yeah.
We have 7 areas we hunt stags in. So our busiest week this year is 52 stags in a week.
Okay.
Which is busy.
That's quite a lot.
And then after that we start to hunt the females.
Yeah, November, December.
Yeah, and into January. Yeah.
Okay.
And also then we make a lot of bird hunts for snipe and woodcock. The thing with these houses, Thomas, is that though it's referred to as a castle, these were never built as fortified structures. These were built, most of these houses were built between 1830 and 1915, 1920. And at that time, the British Empire was at its height. Queen Victoria had married a German who had a passion for hunting. And with that came, as we talked about earlier, the yacht, the deer forest. And because a lot of people were very wealthy, the only thing to do then was to emulate the royals. And because Albert had made hunting so popular, in a very short space of time, vast tracts of the mountain country of Scotland became deer forest. And as we know already, we use the term forest not because of trees, but because of the yacht.
Yes.
And what they did is they all built stately homes, and a huge number of houses like this were built within 10, 20 years of one another. And Glenborradale Castle, Kinloch Castle on the island of Rum, and the main house at Invereinert Lodge at Kyle of Lochailsh, about 70 miles to the north. All of the stone was cut in the same quarries and brought here. And this house was built by a man called Charles Rudd, and it was completed in the late 1890s. And at this time, the passion for deer in Ardnamurchan really grew. And at that was the period when the area that had had small farmers on it and had had farming on it was given over to sport, given over to deer. And the area that Stevie is the hunter on Glenborradale, they shot their grouse, and on the main forest at Ardnamurchan they shot their stags. And where else to stay? They're in a house like this.
Yes, of course.
So it's like I say, it's not a fortified building, but it's a very classy building.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is we'll take a little look around the grounds and show you inside, and you can see how hunters stayed in the 1890s. The Rudd eventually went on and established businesses like De Beers, the diamond vendors.
Oh.
So there's a little suggestion that wealth was connected to the ability to do this.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
Really exciting.
You've been hunting this week in this area and this area and over here, and you can see earlier in the week we saw the caldera, or what really is a collapsed magma chamber of the volcano, and you shot one of your stags on the edge of the magma chamber.
Okay, yeah.
So it's quite an unusual spot. It means the point of the Great Sea, and once you go off that way, as you've seen earlier in the week, you're en route to America. And many of the Vikings probably went that way.
Yeah.
We'll take a wander out here, might see the But you could imagine here in the 1890s, after your day's deer stalking,
Yeah.
so it's standing out here and maybe having a drink with your friends.
Yeah.
It's not bad, is it?
No.
No.
I'm sure they have a nice time here.
Yeah. From a hunting point of view, this is quite interesting because not only did they collect plants and bushes, they collected animals.
Yeah.
And earlier on, we looked at the Chinese deer, the Per David, and there are a host of other species in the UK. that at the same time it became popular to collect. And though there have been issues with plants being released into an environment they don't belong in, it's not all been negative. There's been some successes too, and particularly the pear David is a great example. An animal saved from extinction by the curiosity of wealthy landowners and hunters.
Yeah.
So through in here we have a small billiard room which they turned over as a small dining room.
Billiard room.
Yeah. But you can imagine you're in here with your glass of port and your cigar.
Yeah.
Talking about who shot the biggest stag that day and then playing a game of billiards.
How much does it cost for
The castle would cost about £10,000 a week.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we take 2 weeks next time?
Yeah.
So this is the final stage of a distillery. The only reason we're coming in here early is because it's on the way that we're getting around. So this is a traditional warehouse. It's called a dunnage warehouse. It's got earthen floors. There is no palletisation, rocking. It's all done manually. We put rails on the floor, a row of casks.
Okay.
Then we'll build up another set of rails, more casks, and we'll go 3 high with them.
Okay.
Okay? Just now we're level like this because we don't have a machine for lifting the casks yet. You can see the first cask on the right, there's a butt, sherry butt. That holds 500 litres. It's had sherry in it before. So once it matures in 10 years' time into whisky, it will give you a taste and a smell of like a Christmas cake, lots of fruit, spices. The next cask is an American bourbon barrel. That's had Jack Daniels in it.
Yeah.
So come maturation finishing, you will get things like vanilla flavours, butterscotch, toffee, citrus fruits. So that's what you'll get from that. Yeah. Okay. We've also got a floor up the stairs. Upstairs is warmer than down here. So maturation will be quicker, but evaporation will be higher as well. Okay. So we'll split our cask between up and down. Yeah. Okay. So we've always got something. In 8 years' time, we'll all have something ready. So this is our filling store. This vat here will pump the new spirit in here from the still house, fill it into casks, and we normally fill about 30 casks a week. Okay. Okay? So if you'd like to follow me, we'll go and have a look at the wood chip store. To make Scotch whisky, you need 3 ingredients. You need malted barley, you need water, and you need yeast. At present, our malted barley, we grow it in Fife in a farm. It's a variety called Concerto. We then put it up to Inverness to Bear's Malt, who malt it for us, and then they take it back down here, and we'll put it in here, and it'll be taken by elevators into the silos. The silos will hold 60 tonnes, which is about 2.5 weeks' work. Okay? The water comes from the Glenmore River. It goes by pipe from the river into a holding tank, which holds 500,000 litres. Then it's piped down to the distillery. And the yeast we use is dried yeast for fermentation. The reason we use dried yeast is because it's got a 2-year shelf life. We can take a year's supply in, just leave it lying in a room, it's fine. If you're using barred yeast or liquid yeast, you need a refrigeration unit, and the shelf life's only 2 weeks. So that would mean lots more traffic on the road. So it's a no-brainer for the dried yeast. Okay. So the malt comes in, we put it into the silos here. Then we're required to grind it into a grist. And grist comes in 3 parts. You've got your husk, your grits, and your flour. We're looking for 20% husk, 70% grits, 10% flour. And this is for the mash, because if there's too much flour, the water won't drain through it. If there's too much husk, not enough flour, it'll go too quick. Okay? So it's very important the percentage ratio of the grist. So this is the mash tun. This is where our 2 tons of grist will mix with 8,500 litres of hot water at 65 degrees. Mixed in here. The water will then drain through the grist and at the bottom there's like a sieve plate where the liquid will come through but the solid will stay. I'll go in here, and this is what's called wort. It's a hot sugary liquid. It's about 60 degrees, and we pump it through a wort cooler and into a wash bath. The reason we have to cool it down from 60 to about 21 degrees is because when you add yeast, if the temperature's too high, it'll kill the yeast and you won't get fermentation. So we drain as much of the 8,500 litres off as we can. We then add a second water from the second heating tank, about 3,500 litres. That goes through the mash tun, and that's at 82 degrees, through the mash tun, balance tube cooler, and into a wash bath. So we'll take 10,000 litres of wort from here into the wash bath. The yeast will have been added after 1,000 litres goes in. We'll then stop this part of the process and put a third water on at 90 degrees to get the last of the sugars out the grist, and that returns to the #1 heating tank, and that'll be your first water for your next mash. Okay? So this is the wash bath is filling just now.
Yeah.
So that's coming from the mash tun, through the cooler, and then here. 10,000 litres in here. The yeast will be added after 1,000 litres, and it'll stay here for 56 hours to ferment. Once it's fermented after 56 hours, it's called wash, and it's about 8% alcohol. These vessels hold 15,000 litres, but we'll only put 10,000 in because when the yeast starts working, it foams up, so you have to allow it to go up and down. These are 4 oak wash bucks. They're the first distillery to use oak. Normally it's Douglas Fir or Oregon Pine, but they used to hold cognac in them, and we just thought it was something different, use oak, and it seems to be working. This one was filled yesterday, so it's nearly 24 hours old, and you can see the yeast working.
Yeah.
And if you smell it, you should get a whiff of CO2. Yeah?
Yeah.
So this is iconic idea of a distillery. Everyone knows the copper stills.
Yeah.
This is a wash still. This is a spirit still. So we pump the wash, which is 8% alcohol, from the wash bath in here. There's a coil, steam coil. It heats it up. The vapours will rise up, go over the swan neck and down the line. Outside there's a shell and tube condenser. So you get liquid going through the tubes, cold water going through the tubes, and the vapour will go down the side of the tubes. By the time it falls to the bottom, it's condensed back into a liquid, and it comes in here. You see the liquid running here?
Yeah.
And this is called low wines. 21% alcohol, and that goes from here into the tank on the right hand side.
Okay.
We'll take it down from 21% alcohol down to 1. The reason we don't go to 0 is it takes too much steam pressure to get that last 1% out, so it's not worth it. What's left is called pot ale. That will go into a tank, and then the farmers spread it in the fields. It acts as a fertiliser. You can also mix it with the draff and make pellets, and that's all good for animals as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got our low wines in this tank here. We then put it into the spirit still. Exact same thing, there's a coil in here. We'll put 6,000 litres in. We'll boil it up. The vapours will go up again, down the line arm, through a second condenser outside. And it'll come back in here, on this side. Now the first 15 minutes, it's called foreshots. It's high in alcohol, and there are impurities, so we put it in with the low wines. After 15 minutes, we'll check the strength using the hydrometer and thermometer, and we turn the handle so the flow is now directed in here. That's put into the vessel on the left hand side, and that's a spirit. That's what we want for the casks. So we keep it away from everything else. Usually it's about 72% alcohol that goes on spirit. We'll run it on spirit for 2.5 hours, and the strength will be coming down all the time. When it's about 60%, we just turn the handle back again, and that's now on feints. And we'll run the feints from 60% down to 1%, and that goes in with your low wines. So it's mixing with your low wines from the wash still, your foreshots and fades. What's left here is 1%, and it's just like oily water. We put that in a tank outside. It then goes through a treatment tank where it takes all the heavy metals out, the copper, things like that, and we can then put it into a pond and back into the river. Okay? Every time you put wash in here, it's producing low wines, so you've always got low wines, fades, foreshots for filling this back up. Each still takes about 6 hours again to run. Okay? Once we've got our spirit in the tank, we can then pump it up to the filling store and to fill it into cask. Okay? You'll notice here, this is called a boiling ball. So as the liquid inside is boiling, the vapour's rising, all the heavy alcohol will fall back into the liquid, so it's only the lighter alcohol that is going up over the top to give you a smoother whiskey. You understand all that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Så här slutar det på ett whiskydestilleri i Skottland, men det är så det ska vara. Nu har vi sett hela processen och nu ska vi göra processen kort med den här whisky. Nej, då ska vi inte göra, vi ska provsmaka här bara. Och det är ju kul att det finns lokala destillerier så här, överallt. Men det finns i hela Skottland.
What I would do is nose it first and have a taste of it. And if you want to add water, you just press that, it'll suck up some water and then put some drops in. Okay?
Yeah.
So what you're going to taste is, this is called Foscadale. This is a batch whisky that we do. Foscadale's always a Highland whisky. This one is from Highland Park. The previous one was Clynelish. And it's a marriage of 4 bourbon barrels and a sherry butt. Okay? So that's mixed in. Doesn't make it a blend because it's all the same year from the same distillery. So it's still a single malt. Okay?
Yeah.
46% alcohol, unchill filtered, natural colour. So there's no colourings added. Okay? Unchill filtered means that you don't put it through a chill filter to take out the fatty lipids. So when you add a drop of cold water to it, it'll go a bit cloudy.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay?
No, okay.
It's just the fatty lipids in the whisky coming through.
And what's interesting for you guys is if you look at the name on the bottle,
Yes.
Foscadale, Foscadale.
Foscadale.
The valley of the ship, or
Yeah.
the valley of the fish.
The Swedish name, yes,
Swedish
Dal.
name.
Yeah.
And if you look here, Lidl's Dal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys did this before, just little before your time.
Yeah.
Very impressive, Neil. So as I say, have a taste and a nose, and if you want to put water to it, put water to it.
Kom igen, ta det med.
Ja, det är...
Skål.
Vi skriver. Det är gott. Och just här smakar det faktiskt ännu bättre. När man är i whiskyns hemland. Vi säger väl tack och adjö för den här gången till Skottland. Och jag tror att vi kommer tillbaka. Inte bara för whiskyn. Utan naturligtvis för den fantastiska naturen och den goda jakten. He asked me before, she told you, don't go with it.
But everyone goes on it.